Hi everybody, and welcome to the next episode of the Biodiversity podcast by Teasels. And if you, as you can tell by obviously Jo McKerr sitting here and Jo McKerr's house and the beautiful, what's up the house? Let's just look at the meadow. Look at that. So yeah, down in just outside of Bath. And Jo, how you doing? You okay?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Now, I've wanted to have you on the podcast. Starting, we were talking about Beth Chatto Symposium from a few years ago. And I wanted to have you on the podcast since then, because you were the only person on the panel that actually, I'm going to say it, only person on the panel that actually had something to say, or wanted to say something with passion, where everybody was just sort of, how can I put this? They were sort of talking around time for action, talking around that we're in this crisis, and wanted to use fluffy language. And you disconnected from the people on the panel. You looked at the audience and was like, come on, can you just see that we are in this crisis and we need to fundamentally change. We can't just keep pissing around on the edges. And that kind of set the tone, really.
Yeah, it's a shame it was at the end.
It was at the end, wasn't
Yeah.
it? And then, obviously, as that happens, you follow people on Instagram, and consistently, you don't mix your words, do you?
I don't like to.
Was there a time where you did mix your words and you were sort of like halfway house people pleasing type person, or have you all no?
No, that's not in my nature. Possibly, actually, I've become more mellow with age. The garden has mellowed me. The garden's mellowed me.
Okay.
In the sense that much of my gardening and much of my interest in horticulture stems from an eco-activism from a very early age.
Okay.
And a need to express what Greta Thunberg really expresses so vitally, in that, you know, this kind of this passion, this utter passion for wanting to reconnect and do things differently, because it's really possible.
Reconnect to what?
Reconnect to nature, reconnecting to nature not as an other, but as part of us. That's what we're divorced from. We're divorced from ourselves. I fundamentally believe that everything is connected. That's what ecology teaches us. And so
that's not some woo-woo bollocks.
That's just what it is. Our mental health crises, our physical health crises are also interconnected with our ecological crises and our social injustice crises. The whole thing ripples in a great big pool together, and we're all interconnected. We're just part of a great big soup. And I'm carbon, you're carbon. At some point in time, we might have been
Swifts are carbon. Please let me. Hopefully, you can pick that up.
The Swifts, yeah. And we're, at some point we were all carbon, and we might have been the carbon of a plant's root, or we might have been the carbon of the soil, and we will end up being the carbon of the soil again. And we're just in this body temporarily, and our true body is the earth, the planet here. And when you listen to indigenous cultures, when you see indigenous cultures, that's how they see. That's their world view, and that's the reconnection. It's not appropriating how they see things. It's going back to the essence of who we are and how we need to relate. And for many years, when you were talking about, not mincing my words, for many years, I think.
So did that eco-activism come from your parents? Because you said from an early age.
Yeah. I came from my upbringing, and I shouted a lot, and I was very passionate. But in shouting, I put people off. I didn't bring people with me. I didn't move people's fast. And what gardening like this does And you notice it as soon as people come in the garden. And that's why I love teaching in my garden and not going out and teaching, because I'm still sort of semi-lecturing.
Yeah.
And it's semi-dry. And what happens when you come out and you talk to people in the garden is you've already lifted their bonnet on their, all the rationalist stuff that people use to protect themselves from thinking about this stuff and taking it seriously. You can, through beauty and through immersion, you can open the bonnet on that and you can get to their heart.
Yes.
And as soon as you start moving people's emotions, as soon as you start making them feel the rightness of relating to land like this, living with land and loving it, as soon as you make them, you're moving them. It doesn't matter how many arguments they're having in their head about whether they should recycle this or that or the other. It doesn't matter, all of that stuff. What you're doing is you're moving the dial inside them to a better place.
Do you think they know that? Do you think that this is a...
I don't know.
Well, there you go. That's my head talking, isn't it?
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I wonder how much of our knowing is, there's so many conversations to be had here, about education, about knowing, about what understanding actually is. Because I think the more that I understand about working like this, the more I think horticulture and training and the way that we learn about the biology of plants is all so limited and so truncated that it stops us seeing them as co-evolutionary friends and part and living things and and how we and looking at interactions and relationships is the most important part of biology and the most important part of ecology, rather than the individual bits being and the individual organisms being the most important part. I think that the more that you know, the less you feel like understanding from a textbook can even really graze surface and even really that's one of the reasons I love teaching in the garden, because people can find their own way to that understanding. Some language actually, and Robin Wall Kimmerer I think really, really sums that up in her wonderful book Braiding Sweetgrass, because she starts to use language the English language in a very different way, and she keeps on sort of saying the Potawatomi word for this is blah 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 blah, and what you realize is that they don't it things, they who things, and they don't, and you've got this whole other language which brings an animacy to our landscape. And in all of our biologies, in all of our ecology, in all our horticulture, we're reducing all the time, and it's real struggles. It's a real struggle for people to then do honestly thoroughly wild gardens where they're working in a wild way and they're respecting nature, if they're using that language, because the language squeezes it down all the time. And that's our problem. I think that's why I started that symposium with that passion, because we had been using that language throughout the symposium because we consider it to be the language of horticulture, right? You're not allowed to use emotive language. You don't use passionate language because it diminishes
You're not allowed.
It diminishes your hierarchy and your high standing in the. And I hear time and time again people standing up and sort of saying and talking about plants as though they're kind of just like flat
products.
Yes.
And artistic units.
Yeah. And unitizing things. Yeah. Homogenizing, reducing and reductionist. And
I'm not saying you're saying otherwise, but it's a massive consciousness shift.
Yes, it is. It is.
When you talk about indigenous, populations, I spent some time in 2015 in the Peruvian jungle, drinking ayahuasca and seeing and feeling. And so you talk about language, everything's a spirit. Everything is a plant is not a Latin, it's a spirit. and I've experienced plant healing, but still even after all of that, all in those experiences, there is still, me and Dave were driving over here today, it's conditioning. Yeah. It's just that I was still, it's that conditioning to think about separation.
Well, it's hard, isn't it? Because you put those filters in, and it also means that you can drive past a hedge that's being flailed within an inch of its life and not notice it too much. But as soon as you're opening the bonnet and all of that, and as soon as you're opening people up, then, you are living not just with care and compassion and understanding, but you are living in pain. And seeing.
Okay, let's
understanding that destruction.
So let's stick on that, because
and that's difficult.
So if we're going to have a meaningful conversation, I think it's at this point, which we are, but I found pre-COVID that the pain of everything I'm seeing around me with nature just became too much. Being an empath, I'm like, I don't know how to function. I don't know how to function in this world where all this stuff's happening, which you see on the news, and all the stuff that you don't see around you. And it became really overwhelming. And I've had to get out of bed in the morning and continue with my work and just forward projection all the time. I've had to find a balance between kind of being a robot. So like, I know I'm doing X, Y, and Z in my projects, but I can't allow this, emotionally disconnect. I mean, how do you find that? Like, do you feel that you feel the pain, but how do you carry on sort of going? Do you know what I mean? It's a difficult one.
I think it is a difficult one. And I think, being honest about it is also, people seem to find that tricky, being ruthlessly honest about it. And I find it tricky sometimes being on social media. A lot of the stuff about wild gardening and nature gardening is, and this is how people relate to me as well, they sort of say, sometimes you're not that positive about stuff. And it's just like, the stories aren't positive. No. And I find the relentless positivity about, look, we've saved this and we've saved that. It's not about saving. It's about giving, let's be good grace here. Humans aren't going to save anything.
Yes.
Humans just need to get back in their box and and start having a right relationship with nature, and start, as Alice Fowler says, start being good table guests.
Yeah.
Be good guests at the table. Recognise that the table is a smorgasbord of other interspecies, and
yes.
You've got to show up at the table and be really good guests. And
but it's the ego again. We've got to save nature.
Totally. And you find that there's an awful lot of ego on all of this kind of like these wilding rants that you see, and on this, and I find that really quite off-putting and quite difficult.
Do you not brush that off? Do you not just? Is there not a sort of a level of compassion to, like, you're just playing out your ego, or world?
Yeah, I think I do to a certain extent. Again, and this is why I'm so grateful. I understand the privilege of having a space like this and being able to own 2 acres of this. Not everybody can own this and have this, and you come out here and it just grounds you instantly, and all of that I can let it go. But there's I do get wound up in that whole internal dialogue with why can't X, Y, Z, and that's so draining.
So internal dialogue, so stick on that.
Yeah.
X, Y, and Z.
Well, why can't people see this, and why can't people just do that, and why do we have to X? Why are farmers still doing whatever they're doing out in the fields out here. And, you know, the change would be easy. We all know like loads of change would be easy. And why is this and why is that? I mean, I think one of the things that really annoys me the most is this, the constant tree planting that we see everywhere. I mean, particularly around here, people are buying up large amounts of land and planting uniform, homogenized native trees in plastic canes, all coming from some nursery somewhere, God knows where. And they're planting them in, and that, you know, we know that those don't suppress the carbon. That's been proven now, and they're planting on them on the wrong places, and they're all far too close together. And then they're saying they're saving nature, and it's just so, you know, and they're sequestering carbon, and those trees won't sequester carbon for years and years and years, and they definitely won't provide a habitat. So you know, and it's been proven over and over again, naturally regenerating trees growing in bramble, etc., will sequester 40-50% more carbon than I think the NEP estate showed. But not only that, you know, you've got that whole then plant succession going through it. So conditioning the land, conditioning everything correctly, and providing nesting sites, providing the biodiversity, providing the fruit, providing the but
to go back, why we get frustrated by why can't matey boy over there and matey boy over here do these things? As you were saying that, I'm thinking, well, it's being I think perhaps probably ignorance, like what certain people can do with their land, and then incentivized. If certain people are incentivized, the government was saying, well,
that's
we'll
true.
give you £60 an acre to keep woodland pasture, and you'll be taxed £1,000 an acre to keep pheasants. Farmer tomorrow would, well, I'm going to groundswell 2 days' time. You know, if farmers were incentivized.
I agree with that.
But then it's education, and to come full circle.
Yeah. I agree. Again, I agree with the incentivizing. But then I also think that that's sort of still working with that rationalist capitalist conventional system, which sees land as something in which you need to get product and commodity out of in order for it to be.
But for now,
I think for now. But what I'm trying to, I think there also needs to be a segue into education being about, which we all know, care of land being about stewardship and legacy. We've forgotten how to be good ancestors and leave so that the human generations, we're tied up in not just ego but narcissism. Because we're so obsessed. I mean, when you look at, you sort of asked me where my eco-activism came from. My grandfather was taught farming, but pre-industrial farming methods. In fact, he taught Prince Charles pre-industrial farming methods in Devon at a time when everybody was doing industrial farming methods, and he was an expert in all of these ways of looking up the land that left land in the best state. Never took too much. And one of the things he used to teach me over and over and over again is like, so he would go out and he'd be a mole catcher. His father made money being a warrener and a mole catcher. So that means he was illiterate, not my grandfather, but my great-grandfather. And that means he would, catch rabbit and catch moles. He'd then skin them and he'd sell moleskin for people's, and he'd sell rabbit skin for people's gloves, the inside of people's gloves. He'd send the rabbit meat on the train up to London and make a tidy profit from it. But his mantra that he passed down to his son was, so he was pest control essentially, and we would normally look at pest control as being vile. But he saw the pest as his product.
Yes.
So he never took too many moles. He took the right amount of population so he'd have enough the next year. And he never took too many rabbits. He took the right amount so that the farmer still got a crop, but the rabbits still population still was. And he used every single bit of it, the animal. And we're in a disfigurement now. We don't appreciate every bit of what we are harvesting from whatever bit of land we're taking.
Because it's a commodity, it's not a...
And so there's waste. There would never have been waste. Was an anomaly to my grandfather, and he made it very clear that he didn't understand how you could have a farming system or a gardening system, quite into horticulture, that saw anything as waste. And that was you were talking about the Beth Chatter Symposium. There's Merlin Sheldrake was on, and somebody asked him, so what's the one thing that fungi teach us? And thinking like a fungi, because he was sort of saying, when you think like a fungi, you think communally, you don't think individually. What's the one thing that fungi would teach us? And he said, I think the one thing that human race could learn from fungi is, in fungi world, there is no such thing as waste.
Yes.
And
the deep lessons we can learn from nature.
Absolutely.
There we go. We can learn from nature. We can learn from ourselves.
No, but it's like...
Perhaps politicians should take magic mushrooms and then just sort of sit there in a room and then just be like, okay, that's what, a lot could be learned from magic mushrooms, I reckon. Especially the politicians, policymakers.
I mean, I think it's, because that's one of the things I want to do in the garden is not sustainability. It's actually one step beyond sustainability, because I actually think it's a garden craft to actually be able to use whatever's on site and reimagine it as something. I think that's high garden craft, to be able to reimagine it as something useful and some sort of habitat and some sort of use within the garden. So, I love that Gilles Clement phrase, mantra, nothing in, nothing out. And that's what I've tried to do here. Don't bring any resources in, but don't also ship it out. So nothing is waste. And if you say nothing is waste, your imagination as a gardener and as a designer and as a garden maker is really pushed to its best.
Yes.
To its best. Yes. That's when when I give myself limits like that, that's when I work at the best. And I think that's when humans are their best selves. They say to themselves, this isn't limitless. It's finite. Nature's finite. I'm finite. I have finite amounts of time here. I have finite amounts of resources here. I have everything is finite.
Yeah.
And that is beautiful. And I will work so hard to appreciate what I've got and not desire, which is what all our gardening magazines are aimed towards, not desire something that I don't have. And that is literally one of the biggest problems in human Western society at the moment, is that we are constantly thinking that we should have something that we haven't got.
Me and Dave are talking about this on the drive over here, and if we don't, we feel less than, we feel shit because we don't have it. And if we get something, then we are made, we are whole.
It's utter bollocks. Let's name it what it is. And what I want people to do when they come here is know that this garden's
Can we just say it's utter bollocks? There we go. Yeah. Say it again. That's worth repeating. A desire.
I want them to love this and love it also because it's pure effort, that's pure human effort that's made this. It's not buying something in. It's not curating something that you've kind of like got from somewhere else. It's working with what's here and working with the small finite resources that you have to make the best that you can do and to imaginatively flourish. And also when you're working like that, it's really playful, it's really, really exciting, and it delivers so much more. We're talking about the dopamine hit of buying, and it delivers so much more to your soul, to that.
You're doing that.
It feeds you so much richer, a richer food and a richer diet of happiness. Pure joy. It's pure joy gardening like this. And it puts you back into right relationships. So why not do this rather than lecture people? And that's why I do it. It's like this kind of like, I want people to realize that growing this is possible for anybody.
So you learning about, so you seem quite self-aware, but over the last few years, are you learning more about yourself using the garden as the conduit to that? Yeah?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, challenging. A lot of the things that maybe when I first moved here, having done design work and things like that,
can I say
a lot of things that I'd swallowed and taken as truth.
I think so. It makes me, Dave, sound like a gossip.
I think you should have your own podcast.
Should do. Hello. We are. Yeah, we've got a podcast coming up, me and Dave. It would just be over a garden fence.
Yeah.
But in the same way, so it was like, she's been, I hate the term, everybody's on a fucking journey. But, the sort of, and I've been on it as well, where it's sort of, you do the design and then you use the salvia caradonna and then you're on that sort of journey. You're like, what the hell am I doing? And you use the hydrangeas and then you have shame for using hydrangeas because it's just flipping. Anyway, if you're listening and you use hydrangea annabella, unsubscribe from the podcast, please. Well, anyway, I was going to say you're not welcome, but you are. But seriously, stop using it. But you go on that journey. So you imbibe we use ornamental grasses. We do all this stuff, and we use naturalistic stuff, and you create naturalistic. And it's like leaving you empty, and you kind of you've been on this journey where you're like, that leaves me cold. And this is nourishing for the soul. That's nourishing for the egoic artist. Is that perhaps is that fair comment?
I don't know. I mean, my journey's a bit more interesting in that I grew up with wild meadows like this as an everyday occurrence because my grandfather worked in that area and my father was an architect, but also was fascinated by landscape. And so, I was lucky to grow up in around very undeveloped countryside and would regularly be in quite a lot of natural environment. And I think one of the...
Because you grew up here?
Yeah, I grew up around here. And I think one of the big awakenings for me was, I think I went to London and I became very London. I realized that London has this effect on people. Like even when I go up now, and I see it happens to my children as well. It's quite interesting. You won't necessarily check yourself in the mirror about 500 times and like notice what you're wearing. Or I don't. Anyway, I pull on dungarees. I just go out and garden. So I'll be up in London and I'll get self-conscious. I'll get kind of like, oh yeah, that handbag that lady's got's nice, and that's nice, and I like her earrings, and I'll get acquisitive and I'll feel it. I can see it now. I can feel it happening.
Inquisitive or
acquisitive?
Acquisitive. Okay.
And so I like her trainers. I like
But are you comparing? So you
No, I'm just kind of thinking like, I like that look. I might buy that, or I might have that. And whereas when I'm here, I probably won't buy clothes for years. And it's really interesting what, so I think when I was up there and I was living in a very small house and I was wanting to have some sort of connection with plants and something like that to occur. And I went along to this garden design course, and you're just being presented with design over and over and over and designed gardens. And it's like fashion. Once you see it enough, you kind of like, that's what you think that you want, because you see it in a magazine, you see it over and over again. You think that that's what you want. So, I had gardens and I did gardens in Balham that were, and I had a garden in Balham that was, the classic perennial plants.
Yeah.
Classic perennial plants, the do-gooders, the ones that Pete Aldous would write about in his dream plants for landscapes and all the rest of it. Every single plant, and you'll see them again at Wisley, and you'll see them here, and you'll see them there, and you'll see them at Bruton now, and you'll see them, on the High Line. And it's interesting because we originally said right plant, right place. Right. And that originally, and we will say all these naturalistic gardens are right plant, right place. But actually, they're the same smorgasbord of plants and same palette over and over and over again. And, my husband works in advertising and marketing. And he says over and over again, people want what you keep putting in front of them. It's not, you start to lose your imagination about what you want or what you think you want if product is placed in front of you again and again and again and again. And that's what we've done with horticulture because it suits the financial model that we've got.
Yeah.
Is we put product in front of people's faces again and again and again and again and again. But when you get people in here and you lift the bonnet up, they hear the noise of that meadow. They feel the butterflies floating past. Yeah. They smell that smell of the lady's bedstraw that is just like a heady nectar, and you can imagine falling asleep on it and how beautiful it must have been to fall asleep on that rather than our shitty mattresses that we have now. And you think, this is the real. Yeah. This is the real connection. All those kind of Phlomis rossellania and Salvia caridonas and Miscanthus, they look great in a photo, but they're not the emotional engagement and experience that changes hearts and minds.
I wonder as an aside, like, do clients back in the day, once we finish with our clients and they've got this out in this campus, whether that does anything for them, perhaps we're going to go on a tangent here, whether they get this thing we designed for them and think, oh, do we actually want this? What the hell? Like, there's something missing. Yeah,
I mean, but don't you think that an awful lot about architecture as well? Because I think that one of our other problems as designers is that we're often designing with architects, or that's what I see quite often. So landscape architects and architects are sort of, they sew themselves to each other in a business model. And then you see that these architects are designing houses that are so-called biophilic houses. Biophilic houses, like loving of nature houses, loving of biology houses, living biology houses. And yet they are glass cubes with aluminium and brushed concrete. And there is no space or porosity.
Green wall, though. It's a green wall made of black plastic. Come on, how dare you?
There's nothing there for any interaction.
Yeah.
And it's actually biophobia, isn't it? It's like, nature, can you just get out there, perform for me as a piece of theatre, but don't come anywhere near me because I might actually start having feelings about you.
And I might have to give up the importance of a brushed concrete floor.
But I mean, I think people would give it up. It's just that they feel like that would impress next door, and that would impress next door, and that would impress next door. And so, and that
it'd impress next door if they were the bin themselves.
Yeah, but I think there's a lot of should you know, like if you want to sell your house, it should look like this, and it should then have. I'm fascinated because we've got an old bungalow in Cornwall that we're doing up, and it's in this cul-de-sac, and it's like the Benjamin Voigt picture. You know, every single lawn is mown and blown, like the golf course next door. And I've rewilded the lawn. And first year it was pure dandelion, and it very much I got a lot of hate mail through. And the second year, horseshoe kidney vetch, and it's associated, very, very rare butterfly now, the small blue, all over this little lawn, tiny little lawn, and fleabane, and that lovely yellow fleabane that's native to this country. So it was violet yellow. I loved it. And not a lot of grass, so it's an absolute perfect spot for a meadow. Just got the estate agent round about, you know, is it resellable, blah, 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 blah. He says, well, you have to get rid of that. What?
Estate agents, though, come on.
But this is the problem we've sort of got, isn't it? Is that gardens are still tied up in property.
Yeah.
And property worth and all of that social hierarchy and that social kind of standing. You know, it was a sign of, for him, it was a sign of shame that I hadn't, you know, looked after it or something like that. There was a kind of like, oh, she doesn't have enough money for management.
Yeah. Lack of care.
Lack of care. And it's, you know, that's why it's so important to keep on moving that's why, you know, even, I mean, I know you were here yesterday, but even that's why it's important to actually really use the plants and keep on putting weeds in front of people's faces, basically. Let's just call them what they are. Keep putting weeds in front of people's faces and using them in our high garden culture and in our horticulture. Keep using them over and over and over again. Keep valuing them. Not using something that's cultivated that looks a bit like them, or making a meadow, or making a out of or done it type meadow with cultivated plants, because that's what people will accept, because they won't accept the weed plant. Use the weed. Okay, so contextualize the weeds, because I'm nodding my head and saying yeah. But there's a phrase that a garden designer friend said a few months ago. You've got to take people with us. Yeah. So there is a keep putting weeds in front of people. Keep educating people about weeds. I know they're not weeds, but I'm just saying it. Yeah. And keep on extolling the value of them, and then moving the conversation and but more weeds, and then from a design point of view, contextualizing, to steal a phrase from Jack Fiennes, the guy at Holcomb Hall, you know, define that edge, to get the strong edge and allow the weeds. You know, I often think that I want my planting palette to be 75% weeds, 25% wild, maybe.
I was going to say 25% cultivated plants, but you could say 25% structure. Give me a log pile and a bee post any day. Yeah. Rather than a
I try not to even think of ratios anymore.
My head works in that way, though. Yeah. Still spatially.
I mean, so many reasons why we need to work with wild plants and not just cultivars, but not use plants from other places. but use what grows here.
Yep.
Naturally grows here.
Seems to make sense.
And I think we've been burnt by the native, non-native debate, whatever you want to call it. It's burnt us so hard, the semantics of it, the kind of like, all the kind of political ramifications of it, that we're not having enough conscious conversations about how we put wild plants, or how we accept, because we're not putting them in. That's the other thing. I don't plant these plants. They find their own way. They are self-seeding. They are living out their full life cycles.
Yes.
So important in the garden. The whole of horticulture truncates life cycle. It's almost that's how they teach horticulture. Like, how do you foreshorten or keep a plant alive and pruned or in some sort of
box?
Yeah, keep it in one sort of life stage for the rest of its life. I mean, that's the interesting thing. I think that was the big moment for me with the perennial movement of planting. I was using all those perennial plants. And you're just keeping all these plants. The reason why they like using them is because they stay put, those plants, don't they? And they don't really, all you have to do is if they might donut a bit. And so you have to sort of just chop them up and then replant it. Yeah. But the plant basically stays where it is, keeps its form and just comes up and down in a seasonal way. And, but it doesn't really ever evolve into anything different. Right?
The frozen picture of a garden,
and that's almost the ultimate of control, isn't it, for horticulture? That's what you see. That's how we've been taught that those are great plants because they're easy to control. They're easy to control. They're easy maintenance plants. So that's what the garden is about, because you don't have to water them too much, you don't have to cut them too much, you don't have to
that's a mindset, but it's a consciousness shift. It's a the garden becomes another manifestation of control, fear, and
but it's weird, isn't it? Because it's then sold to you as low maintenance, and therefore that's low maintenance. That means it's sustainable because it's less watering. You just need to mulch. You don't actually need to employ people too often. You don't need to fertilize it because you've got a certain uniform soil. How much do people actually learn about the plant when they garden like that? Because that's what I was finding. It's when I started, I read a book called Gardening with Chaos, which was about, it was a brilliant book by some Dutch guys who basically it was about crushing up limestone. They were crushing up limestone and sand. This is before Peter Korn, and they were chucking down seed. Now they were using cultivated non-natives, but they were also mixing in some natives.
Yeah.
But they were just chucking down seed, and then, partly inspired by Cashew and Schmidt, and they were kind of like just seeing where the community went and how the community started. So I started chucking down seeds, and then I started building lots of little piles and chucking down seeds. This was in London, and those things were so much more interesting, and I learned so much more about plants because I could see the plant. I could suddenly see how the plant was and who the plant was, and that it was a biological process. And as a biological process, each and every bit of that process either fed the soil biome or fed the ecology around it. Well, it was feeding everything.
Yeah.
And so, by not letting that plant live out its full life cycle, not understanding that plant fully, we're not really gardening with the plant. We're just gardening the plant. We're making it into a thing. We're not letting it be a biological being. And, working with seed, working with wild plants, working with genetic variability within that wild seed, surely, then we know that it's the seed and the soil biology that adapts plant to place. It's not about right plant, right place. It's about, understanding what the place is, what the scene is, what the community is, and fitting into that community ourselves. We're not the genius loci. We're literally not a genius. We need to fit into the loci. We need to be more local, and we need to get local with it, get with the vibe, get with the scene.
You did that, it's all in the head, isn't it?
Yeah. It's kind of like, it's a whole bodily experience, really, isn't it? I think so.
Yeah, you can say that, but head gets in them.
It gets in the way.
It's not our friend, the head, is it?
No, I don't think so. But I mean, I do think that's that beautiful thing of like, I mean, I wouldn't have not worked. You were sort of saying journey, but actually, that was quite nice.
Did I make that noise afterwards?
Yeah. But actually, I quite like the idea that we are all journeymen now, and that's what gardening can be. It's not some sort of one size fits all, and you just go to the RHS and learn as kites. You just go to the RHS and learn something, and then you just apply it. You have some to-do list that's forever the same to-do list seasonally. And that's the beauty of, and you were talking about letting go of, that's the beauty of gardening wild. If we say this is wild gardening, I don't know, rewilding gardening, whatever you want to call it. Honestly, all those terms are so tainted. I've got no idea what to call it anymore. I think in my head, I call it wild gardening. If we go that route, then you are really seriously letting go of any type of ego and protagonist sense that you're in any way in control or have some authorship. But second of all, you're sort of saying, really, all the creativity and all the imagination is on a day-to-day basis here. A day-to-day imagination meeting and playful imagination meeting with the landscape. And that means, the crucial person in these landscapes is the gardener. It's not the designer. They are what's going to make this landscape sing. And I think that's the biggest journey I've been on here, is I think I used to love designing, and I used to think design was, the thing that I've always wanted to do. I love this idea of drawing this thing out and then it becoming a reality. And actual fact, what I've realized is the deep imaginative leaps and the deep understanding that you need in order to realize a truly ecologically balanced landscape. Maybe I haven't got there yet. Really comes into the making and the doing of the everyday, and the honourableness and the beauty and the utter sheer skill of everyday labour. They are master craftsmen, the people who garden in these gardens.
Yeah.
The master craftsmen. And they have incredibly refined skill.
So something you said about your process, about how you're evolving from to being an ongoing sort of consultant, and it's a continual process rather than a 6 months design process. Plop the garden in. Cheerio.
That's my ideal. Obviously,
why the
Yeah.
Why the nervous laughter after that?
Because I am conscious that sometimes I'll work with other designers and that's what they offer. And I work as a kind of as a wingman to their design process, which helps the garden be
But can't you be confident?
conceived and then settle in.
But can't you be confident?
But there's still nevertheless a master plan and a blah and a blah and a blah.
But can't you be confident in the fact that we know that instant gardens, gardens created over a period of time are much better than the.
Oh yeah.
So there's that confidence of like, well, we can carry on doing it that way.
Yes.
Or we can just. Clients are paying us for this, and they're paying big money.
Mm.
Well, can't we just go through the process we know will fulfil their desire? I sound like a robot now. But doing it as a consultant over a period of time will fulfil the goals that they actually want.
Yeah. Again, that's a process in and of itself. Trying to you don't find those people that readily. They
but people don't know, perhaps they don't know what they don't know, like
no absolutely. So it's a kind of guidance process, and I have clients who are like that, and maybe would even have, and I would say their gardens are wilder than mine. And they teach me as much as I teach them.
Nice. Yeah.
Because the gardener in me always wants things to have beauty and to move but they won't always be gardeners. A lot of them are kind of more natural historians than gardeners, or ecologists more than gardeners, and they're sort of much more interested. They buy into the process really heavily, and that they are much more relaxed about
but let's make that
not having something that tickles their floral fancies like I might. I'm particularly pleased at this year because the meadow have so much different colour in it, and that's really, really like excellent for me. Other people would say, well, it's as long as you've got the insects, not really bothered about what the flower is in it and what the flower content is in it. I think then that's the beauty of also the beauty of gardening like this, because each and every person will have their own equilibrium and it will be different, and then it will make for different landscapes. And we all know that different interpretations of all these different landscapes, each and every body's different interpretation will also add to ecology, because it means that nobody's replicating this landscape. So we're not having the Pete Eldorf or the Nigel Dunnett or James Hitchmo effect, where the same landscape and the same things are rolled out again and again and again and again in response to this is an underplanting for trees, and this is a planting for outside on a hillside. We're not having the same things over and over again. We're having individual local plants.
Individual local plants.
Describing local landscapes, but also describing it with the gardener's input, which is idiosyncratic to that gardener and idiosyncratic to that person, and their sense of what their belonging in place is and their sense of who they are. And, I often feel that when I go to Derek Jarman's garden, it's so personal to the person. And then his passion and his personality come through, and it's woven into the nature of the place. So his personality is woven into the sort of rugged nature of that place, and how the plants work and how they grow, and that's what makes it so magical. It's that kind of like, and I think that's what's bringing you back to that relationship. You're kind of like, you're weaving your personality into the place. And that's not genus loci, that's kind of like you becoming the community accepting you into it. And that's how you weave legacy and belonging and all these important things that we need to get back to.
So we're on a couple of things there. So I love process, and then communicating, distilling, and writing down the process you're going to go through. So it becomes, so you clearly communicate that you're buying a process. And I say that every single podcast. I remember chatting with Dusty Gedge about, you're not buying a green roof, you're buying a process. That's what you're buying. And he was talking about green roofs in South America. You're buying a process. The specification underlines a process, not a goal. So formalizing and communicating that in ways that people understand. So you're buying a process, you're buying into the gardener design and client relationship, so that it becomes, this is the way mine works, it becomes a process. Subject of Derek Jarvis, I was down at Dungeness a couple of weeks ago. I like sport. I guess I can't compare it to what it was back in the day. But I thought the front seaside was a lot more floral to what I see, and I thought it became a bit of a tourist. I was like, what the hell? The front garden seemed over garden. And again, this is an aside, I thought, no mate, it's been notched up 25% to be really, really floral and over the top of the front garden project. So it lost its feeling to me.
Okay.
Again, so I'm just saying that out now.
Yeah.
Compared to.
Yeah, have you been before?
Well, I've seen a 1,001 pictures. It was my, over the years. Yeah, I just thought it was too floral in the front garden, and there was, and in the back, to steal a phrase from John Little, it's not as floriferous, and it's the space between all the stuff that really makes it, the spatial arrangement.
Well, it's always been the space between, I think, that's made John's gardens, in that he works with the desolation of the site to create something that's very emotionally moving, because it's almost a description of what he was going through as he died of AIDS, and that's that kind of force of trying to live life to its best, even as it's dying, even as you're dying. And you can feel that force in the garden. I used to feel that force when I went to the garden, that kind of desolate landscape, that garden without boundary and without horizon. And then, but you're loving every bit of life and every bit of nature, even as it's, even though, in fact, loving it harder because death is really, really close. And I think that the plants can really describe that, and landscape can really describe those emotions that we don't actually talk about that often.
We should talk about a lot more.
Yeah, but I think that's why that garden moves people so much. And I think that's the importance of gardens, because
there's a certain bleakness to it, isn't there?
The gardens should always have death in them, because death is part of life. And that's why the garden's product also doesn't work, because we were talking about those perennial gardens that never die, always look the same, and they never evolve, and they never change, and they never have moments of fallow and moments of growth. And so they don't tie into our personal life, do they? They don't tie in to the drama and the emotion of everyday life. And Monty Don actually is quite good on it. He often talks about, how the garden really helps him through moments of deep grief and deep depression. And because it keeps on living, but it also accepts death.
Yep.
And accepts that there's a finiteness to everything, and it accepts that it's painful, but that's a process.
Just use the that would have been, well, no, am I going to fall over? Let's go then. Yeah, but using that guttural pain of death and love to power you. I don't think there's any other, well, no other emotion, just that focusing of, I don't know what else there is to sort of fire the furnace, to fire out the death of, death is coming, and the tragedy of life, the overwhelming love of, I was just saying to Dave yesterday, it was just like overwhelming, like, yeah, yesterday was overwhelming for me, and I say it like just the majesty of life. Yesterday was fucking brilliant, and it was brilliant because you were in your pomp. You were in your pomp, and it was like, and then we watched the selector afterwards, and it was like, this is overwhelming. And then there's the...
And they're just in any old pub as well.
Yeah, just like, oh my God, it's just like end of a car park. What was my point? The love, what powers you is love and sort of...
I think
tragedy.
we've got too often we think about gardens as like what they're about is like they're attached to property and they're about kind of like heightening value of property, or they're about kind of like, you know, making something for an estate agent photograph or something like that. And actually gardens are this liminal space, aren't they? They're this liminal space between our domesticated self and nature and landscape. And they're the meeting point between you, your personality, how you want to shape and control things, and how nature says your understanding of control and your understanding that you can shape your life is completely a false dream that you have. But I'm going to work with you on that. And so there are these beautiful creative spaces where you meet nature, hopefully in this kind of like respectful, meeting place, but a meeting place where you're both at your imaginative best. So you're being really like, I do think of gardening as an art form. I think it's incredibly radical, as in it gets to the root of everything. Like the root of why the fuck we live and why the fuck we're here, right?
Yeah.
Because what is the
gardening or
life?
art, or gardening or art?
Well, I think they're kind of like, I actually think more gardening than art, because in a way, when you see things growing how they want to grow, there's, you know, and things moving how they want to be and managing how they want to manage, no amount of kind of like pastiche representation of that, you know, or recreation of that will ever recreate the utter beauty of that moment and that meaning, the meaning of that moment and the ecology of that moment. But there is something
I thought you were going to go
lovely about being able to be truly artistic, as in kind of like really imaginative and really get lost in the kind of imaginative fuzz of it all within a very natural ecosystem, within a deep ecology.
I guess in gardening anyway, there's a bit of control, isn't there? Like your control. That's what I'm making this point, but I guess there's a bit of control, isn't there? Because this is a garden.
Garden.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be big, sort of pedantic. I'm just.
Oh no, there's loads of. I like to think it as not control, because I've got no idea what will pop up here or over there, really.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got a sense because I sort of. No, hang on. I do know what's going to pop up here or there because I know the land well enough and the soil well enough. I know that this is damp soil, and Yorkshire foggers always need to want to stay in the part shade of this damp piece here.
But you're not going to fall apart if the Achillea doesn't come next year?
No. I think the thing is that I know the plants are telling me where they want to be on the site. I'm not telling the plants.
Yes.
So I either accept that it's going to be not so florally diverse here and much more interesting for butterflies because these are their larger food sources and aren't they beautiful? And I personally, Yorkshire fog is one of my favourites. I'm going to accept that lack of floral diversity there, understanding that the ecology is there. Or I might sort of say, next year, that's so boring, I don't want to look at it. So that might actually become a small lawned area, and I might move the meadow over there because the meadow can shift wherever it wants to shift now because the land is so accepting of the native flora that now live in it. So it's knowing that my control, the finite nature of my control, actually, it's finite. It's not unbridled. I'm not going to go in there with a digger now and dig it all up.
Do you mind me asking, your recent experiences have got you to this point about control?
Yeah. I mean, I suppose one of the recent experiences that got me is I did do a sand garden experiment.
We've all done a sand garden experiment.
Yeah. And that was interesting because, I am inspired by all these guys who work with sand, and it's very interesting, sand. I was slightly drawn back from it, first of all, just because it does seem to be now a way of curating large amounts of plants that wouldn't naturally grow in this country. Yeah. And that just seems to be yet another way of that type of gardening that doesn't appeal to me anymore, which is a kind of curation of curiosities that others might find it difficult to grow, or, a curation of drought tolerance, which is just bananas because all drought tolerance is in the soil anyway, and in the soil relationships.
So I am one of those people that explores that, brings brownfield. There you go, brings brownfield into designs. And as you're saying that it's the curiosities of we'll just grow that blotter from Beth Chatto's, and then it's kind of losing sight of topography, losing sight of ground nesting bees. I'm on board with that. If we're bringing rubble onto site, but we're changing topography, and then we can now get ground nesting bees, I'm judging that, thinking, okay, well, the net benefit is great. But then you're right. There's where do we sit on the continuum of? Well, we're now just using rubble to grow fancy stuff that we're curious about, rather than let's just grow wildflowers.
Yeah, there's a guy called Harry Watkins. Who I've had the privilege to meet, and he blew my mind several times over.
So that's Harry Watkins and St Andrews Royal Botanic Garden. Yeah. Pause the podcast, go down that rabbit hole on Instagram. Flipping. We and Dave went down a rabbit hole this morning.
Yeah.
Oh my, yes.
Yeah. So he's a protege of Nigel Dunnett and James Hitchman. And basically he's doing these, what he calls novel ecosystems. Yeah. Where he uses the rubbish on site, crushes it up, makes it into interesting topography on site, and then allows whatever seed bank is in there to come up, and then allows sort of people to sort of, he calls it Sinus Loci, which I love the idea. He says we're getting rid of the genius. There's no geniuses left. Like, we do not want the picturesque Alexander Pope in our worlds anymore, and all that ego. And he calls it like sceners, as in we're setting a vibe, we're setting a scene. And by using people to kind of explore the site with their desire lines, they're then gardening it. And then they're then interacting. They're part of the ecology then. They're part of the community. So the people are, he's making them into the gardeners, whether they want to or not, whether they like it or not, or whether they see themselves as gardeners.
I wonder if we had David here, he could share his experience with a meanwhile garden.
Yeah, because I mean, it's kind of like, it's that whole, like getting people playfully being playfully in gardens and having that imaginative excitement in gardens, and reconnecting with all these kind of like latent, repressed emotions and ways of being, and more animal ways of being that gardens can kind of like allow us to express. And then also we'll probably make better decisions, and we'll probably be better people for it, but we'll definitely relate to nature better as a result of it. And I look at what he's doing and I kind of think, the sand was next door, and I brought the sand in and I put it in, and I planted some thyme, and some ant hills came up underneath the thyme, and it was all going beautifully. And then a ton of worms moved in and brought up beautiful soil from underneath this sand. And the land said to me, it's going to change. Nature wants to evolve this space from a sand garden, from an early succession planting that you put in, or actually it was a cliff edge planting that I put in, not on a cliff edge.
Yeah.
And it said, that's it, great. We've loved that for about 3 years, but now we want to evolve this space into something else because it's time.
But that's a worthy reminder of not regression, but you're kind of relearning that lesson of
and I realized that I designed a little spot in the garden to essentially stay the same forever and ever. And actually the rest of the garden has specifically been imagined as something that every single year will change and develop and move and evolve and grow and be able to live out its full life cycle without too many people bashing it into some sort of weird submission. And
did you see that coming, or were you just caught up in?
No, I was caught up in the moment, and caught up in that whole kind of thing of going to too many symposiums. Again, it's about product placement. It really was. I'd gone to too many lectures where I'd seen beautiful sun garden after beautiful sun garden, and seen Olivier Philippe's nursery and thought, and all of this stuff. And
do we get caught up in? We need to take a breath. Just take a breath.
Yeah, you do.
You just, what do I want? What do I want? What do I want to do? And just get caught up. I mean, I'm not immune from it. Of course I get bloody caught up.
Yeah, we all have. I know this because my husband works in this area. He has spent a lifetime trying to understand how to get people to want things in order to get them to buy things, in order to manipulate their behavior into being a consumer. And our whole society is geared towards, and every single thing on social media pretty much, and we all buy into it, is geared towards making us consumers, making us into consumers. But if you think animalistically and you think garden, you think in terms of wild garden, you cannot consume anymore. It's wonderful. It's so liberating because you're not the consumer. You're not a consumer. You can't be a consumer. You can't garden like this and be a consumer. You can't consume anything. You're a doer. You're a maker. You're an imaginer. You're co-creating with nature. You're nature. You're getting back to nature. You're getting into your nature. And it's like
animalistic,
it's playful, it's joyful, it's imaginative, it's really rich in possibility. But the thing is that it's not a product, and so it's not a commodity, and so it can't be sold on a blooming supermarket shelf. And you know, that's tricky. That's tricky.
I'm curious, how does your husband switch off of an evening? Like, he goes,
Yeah.
it's just like, I'm sorry, this is not about biodiversity. I'm like going from that to sort of just like slightly.
Oh, he's retired now. Yeah.
Bloody better for me.
Yeah. Well, he's
How did he make that if you don't mind me asking, make that transition from sort of being that way minded or having to think in that way on a 9-to-5 basis, and then sort of like,
Well, it's interesting. He's at a more progressive edge of that, in terms of kind of like, he was one of the first people in that world of marketing and advertising to say, actually, brands have more political sway, and brands have more social control than most politicians.
Yeah.
And so if you're saying as a brand that you are interested in social and environmental concerns, then we need to define. So he would go to CEOs and say, we need to define for you a social and ethical conscience.
Yeah.
So the corporation needs to take on board social and ethical consciences and describe that within the framework of the brand. So brands take on board that and then start working towards that as part of their, whether that shifts enough.
Process.
It's part of the process, exactly. It's part of the process. And that process might eventually lead to, reading that wonderful Robert McFarlane book, Is a River Alive? That process might eventually lead to nature rights and legislation being written that puts...
It will, though. We'll enter this degrowth, not my term, but this degrowth.
I think, whether we like it or not, that's going to happen, yeah?
Just get away from this delusion of infinite growth.
Yeah.
Infinite growth and finite.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we will enter that phase. Whether we like it or not, we're already entering it, aren't we? We're seeing it already with food structures being wobbled, various different emergencies being declared in different countries.
Just by certain people in this industry.
Yeah. And that will happen. I think that that will necessitate a different way of working, whether people like it or not. So we can't have these great big, huge landscape overhauls. We can't have the instant gardens. The instant gardens hopefully won't survive for very much longer. Hopefully if you bring in the mature trees and things like that, we literally just, unless AI is going to irrigate them all, hopefully we just won't have the resources.
AI will save the day.
Yes.
It's going to save all of our problems. We're going to have to do absolutely nothing. We're just going to get leisure all the time.
Well, certainly what AI will do and is capable of even now is if you say, I want an Arnie Maynard garden, and feed it Arnie Maynard images of Arnie Maynard gardens, it can pretty much do a pastiche of that style of garden for you. And so it will be able to, it will threaten the conventional designer's job quite quickly. Yeah. So if you as a designer aren't really interested in working like I am with seed, you're not really interested in working with indigenous plant communities or novel ecosystem communities, you're not really interested in using what's on site and trying to reimagine with what's on site and reconfigure with the materials on site and not bring anything in from outside. Yeah, I don't really see how your job description is going to last for very much longer.
No.
And that's really great, actually. I think that's a cull that we need. It's going to be unfortunate,
But it's going to be unfortunate. But my my brother, if you're listening, Ben, you bore the hell out of me and the rest of the family. He talks about AI all the time. We were talking about this, and he said, "Well, yeah, AI can't take away from
novel thought,
human interaction of working on site, being here with the clients." Because me and David are working on a project at the moment, and we were thinking, well, what are these people actually paying for? And it was like, well, they're paying for plants, but they're paying for how it makes them feel. They've moved from south of France to Norwich, and part of it is the having me and Dave in the garden, and you can't get away from it. You can't get away from that human
interface. Yeah, I agree.
Human interaction, what people are buying, and what AI can't deliver. Can't deliver.
What you were talking about, relationship, and relationship's the key, isn't it? Really, to everything, I think.
Yeah.
Like, you can't. That's the other thing that I sort of think about design, is that you can't really understand a site instantly either. So this idea that you could put in an instant garden and instantly understand a site is nonsense as well. The more that I work longer term with sites, and this site in particular, the more I realize that actually it's so easy to make false assumptions about place and landscape.
Yeah.
And we're almost encouraged to sort of to make those false assumptions, and to be kind of like really just sort of say, oh, it's clay, so it's like this, or something. Really, it's like this, and it's like that. And in actual fact, we fail over and over and over again to understand that every single bit of landscape is dynamic and evolving over space and time.
Yes.
And every single bit is changeable and mutable, and that gardens that accept all of that and work with all of that will be not only the most ecologically sound, because they're intervening less, work with as much as possible against as little as possible, as Gilles Clement says. So you're working with the planet, you're working with the planetary garden, you're working with a process that is continually evolving towards something that you can't possibly ever imagine. It's not your job to know and understand that. It's your job to just work with it. And your job is to not impose, but to go with the flow, to go with the vibe, go with the community, be part of that community. And so, these gardens that accept that and move with that, that's a relationship. And the biggest thing that we do as a designer now is try and explain that to the client, that they're not buying a picture, they're not buying anything static, they're not buying anything, and the beauty is that in that fact.
Yes.
In that fact that they are buying something incredibly mutable and changeable, and the beauty will be different every single day. And that's so much more than just an artwork hanging in your loo. It's a thing that will surprise you and move you, and that you will relate to differently, and it will evolve over time, and it will teach you all of these wonderful, beautiful things that plants can teach us, that, life is really, really changeable and dynamic, and moves and explores and grows and dies, and even in death it's got even more beauty, and it gives back even more to its local ecology. I mean, what's more extraordinary than that? Because I think right at the beginning you asked me what got me into this, and what really has defined me from a very young age was I had a sister who was 18 months younger than me. And she was born with severe disabilities. And nobody could work out what was wrong with her. And she lived in extreme pain for 4 years. And she shared a bedroom with me. So she was mute, she couldn't speak, but she expressed herself through noise. And she would come to me to school, and she was quite frightening for other children to be around. So I was ostracized at a very young age. And then she got a brain hemorrhage and died very quickly, very suddenly. She never got the chance to live her life. She never got the chance to enjoy life. And when I knew she was dying, I wrote her a letter. I was 6. And I wrote her a letter and I said, I promise to live my life twice as hard, and twice as well, and twice as beautifully, because you haven't had a chance. And
To honour her? To honour her?
Yeah, well, no, just because, like, it felt so unfair, I think, to me, a 6-year-old. Yeah. And I think I interpreted that injustice as the kind of injustice that nature has on a daily basis. And, you know, the kind of, like, the muteness that nature has. It's unable to shout and rail about the pain of life like she was unable to. And there was just so many commonalities there. And when she died, there were, like, the adults, they weren't ever able to hold me. You know, they weren't, you know, my mum tried to hold me, that nobody was ever good enough. I was so angry, and I didn't know what to do with that anger as a little girl. And I'd regularly run away, and the place I would find myself is in this hollow oak at the top of the hill, on a hill called Pagan's Hill. And I'd crawl inside this hollow oak, and it was just like this kind of like womb. And it somehow could hold that grief that nobody else could hold and be near. And all that anger that I felt, I mean, deep, deep, deep worrying anger that I think only through, you know, initially the eco-activism was born out of that kind of like that sense of injustice. Why are we doing this? But, you know, actual fact, what actually quells the anger is working like this, where you're not working in an angry way, you're working in a playful, doing, deliberate.
Have you still got that anger? Do you think you still got that anger?
No, I think it's evolved into something much. The passion's still there.
So it's gone from I want to punch the world to.
Oh yeah,
I
don't want to punch the world anymore. Yeah. No, it's much more kind of like seize the day. Love it. As intensely as you can. Don't be ashamed of loving it and giving it.
You're an empath. You feel you're an empath?
I think I am. I think I'm also.
Whatever that word means. You feel stuff strongly.
Oh, extremely strongly. Yeah. But tell me a gardener who doesn't. You know. Yeah, well, I mean, some of them. But
sarcastic.
Yeah.
Suppressing a list. Getting all bitchy. No. But they're shit though.
They're
the shit ones.
The shit ones. Okay. I think that you know.
Oh, that's no.
Gardening. It's hard. It's hard. It would be hard to garden if you weren't empathetic and didn't see things, I think, and relate. But I think the other thing that it's made me realise is that you know, it's okay. It's okay to have all those passions. It's okay to have that emotion tied up in in life. Yeah. To love life. And to really, really love it. It's okay.
All aspects. Yeah. It's all aspects of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. I keep saying okay, because when some people I notice don't have that guttural love, overwhelming love for it, there's kind of, I sometimes withdraw, like, I'm too intense. And I'm like, well, no, it's just, that's your bag. If you're not going to be, it's right, it is good to love life, to very deep.
Yes. Precious.
And if people are threatened by it, if people are threatened by that, because I'm saying I'm free associating, because I'm sometimes feel that in client meetings, I'm conscious of being professional, and I'm conscious of juggling that professionalism with the deep, passionate individual, and I find that I just a juggling act. Because you can't be this. I just want to express my love of life and my love of this, but you don't know me yet, so just like, whoa.
Yeah. And that's why when we go back to design and design morphing into something else, I do think that it's going to morph into something that's much more about a relationship and a process that you guide people on, where your job as a designer is less to sort of show mood boards and show pictures and show and to guide narrative and to guide passion and to guide emotion and to guide connection. And I use a rather fancy term in that when I talk to people, and some people buy it and some people don't buy it, but I sort of say, think of me a bit more like a doula.
Yeah.
As somebody who's, gone through the experience of being in landscape and creating in landscape and stuff like that. And so I'm guiding you through that experience first time. And hopefully when you go through it, you'll be able to take from me what you want, but you won't have one of my gardens. You'll have your garden. Yes. You'll have your expression of your relationship with land connection, nature connection that is yours. It's your, you will guide those boundaries and where you want them to be and how you want them to sit and how you want that to feel. And it would be an expression of you, not some sort of, I think we're still in that mode, still as designers, where I can even look at a garden and say, that's a garden and that's a garden, because we're still in that Hollywood mode where Al Pacino plays the same character over and over again, and we know that's an Al Pacino role, right? And our gardens are similar. That's why these designers are so fated, because you're buying a look that they've curated over space and time, and it's almost like a film star look. You're buying into that elite, and that will change quite quickly, I think, now.
But to answer your question about process, so I love the fact that when I was listening to you talk, there was a bit of squirming, because I was like, I know, like, the mood board is a load of bollocks. And it's kind of, and it's evolving out of that, and I've evolved out of, because there's all the software in the world. I've evolved. I know there's the 3D render, there's twin motion. I know we can't talk about twin motion because it's democratizing all this quick render. But I've sort of like, well, I know it's out there. It's out there, but no, I'm not going to do that. And so there is an evolve. It's about process. It's about evolution into, I think where I'm at the moment is functional gardens that actually function for wildlife is the holy grail. And it's that process of getting more and more and more to that, how it can totally function for wildlife and there's not these blind spots about sustainability and buying stuff in and all the rest of it. Like, when listening to you, I was like, I'm squirming because, you know, like we were talking earlier, project in Norwich, 500, 600 P9, you know, big lump of plastic, and there's this coming from there and that coming from here. And although I'm weaving in, you know, there's the wildflowers and the weeds are being totally woven into the cultivated plants, there's still the blind spots. There's still, okay, well, that feels really comfortable. That feels like, oh, that doesn't feel comfortable. That doesn't sit well. So yeah, the process. But being an ex-teacher, this hand-holding, the guiding, the teaching. I mean, that's a skill set. Even though I've got all the qualifications, that's been in me 15 years. So I know I'm heading there. I'm heading there. It's just, when will I jump off that into that sooner rather than later? It's just that kind of fear of a really new way of working.
Yeah, and I think the other thing probably we have in this country is that we don't have public gardens that are leading the way, because public gardens should be the people who are leading the way in this area.
Yeah.
They should be really about educational interface, almost primary objective. And yet every single RHS garden I've been to recently has literally been incredibly disappointing in that area.
It's just missed opportunity after missed opportunity.
I mean, it was exit via the garden centre when I went to RHS Grizzly. The amount of money that had been spent on this garden centre and these kind of, commercial infrastructure.
Plants from Holland.
Yeah. Well, plants in 2-litre pots full of peats. I mean, because they've gone back on the peat promise because hang on, it wasn't realistic, I think they said. I mean, it's only not realistic if you're continually trying to tell the public that a plant is a product that you buy in a great big pot. I mean, we were saying earlier, there's no fair root plants anymore.
Yeah.
But I mean, there is just not. You go abroad to the rest of Europe, you have so many more wild plants available.
Yeah.
They're all bioregional.
Yeah.
They're all grown bioregionally. They have kept the genetic variation within their plants and within their seeds. They've kept the wild open pollination.
Sure.
They're brush harvesting, so they're keeping all that microbial intelligence within the seed. So, you know, you look at something like our ash trees now, which we've now discovered actually a third of them are not going to die. They're actually going to... The only reason they can evolve out of this crisis that they find themselves in, and they're crucial trees for our ecosystem, the only reason they can evolve out of it is because 100 years ago, thank God, we had some farmers who didn't cut all of them down. They pollarded them, they kept them going in the hedgerows because they were great little trees for firewood and they were great little trees for all the other things. And because they kept them going, they didn't plant them out from a nursery. They didn't buy in genetically exactly the same, because they're all propagated from the same plant. Things that have been grown in a smorgasbord of peat and growmore compost. No, they let the thing cross-pollinate and then naturally regenerate again and again and again. They kept the wild plants alive, and we are losing those plants out there. 70% of them are being lost at a rate that is unsustainable for them to keep evolving as wild plants. So if we don't give room for them here, we are going to lose the wild plants. And from the wild plant comes everything. Everything. This is what people don't get. They keep on thinking that a cultivar or a plant from Kyrgyzstan is going to save us. It's not.
No.
It's really not. You know, these wild plants are where our wheat comes from. our current wheat crops, it's so disconnected from microbial relationships with the soil and mycorrhizal relationships with the soil. It's so overbred and overcultivated that it's now failing if it doesn't have large amounts of fertilizer given to it. But, all the genetic variants, we've never understood microbial relationships. We never understood mycorrhizal relationships. So when we are propagating these things, we are cloning them again and again and again, making F1 hybrids and all the rest of it in our nurseries, we are taking away their ability to evolve and withstand environmental change, pollution, crises that we are bringing up to bear upon them. And everything depends on them and their relationship with soil. Everything depends. And so the focus of gardening, the focus of horticulture needs to be a focus on allowing them to regain their wild relations with soil. Then the soil interface between plant and soil needs to be rewilded. And all my process, everything I do in the garden, is about allowing that to be as wild as possible and me getting out and letting it dictate, be autonomous, letting that relationship dictate the rest of the garden. It's not right plant, right place at all. It's allowing place to be in ecology, allowing place and learning from place so that you can better allow place to be the ecology it wants to be and it needs to be. It's you can't impose a right plant. The soil, when I met Eddie Bailey, lovely guy, and he said, what gardeners don't get is the soil dictates the floral tone.
What's down below? And that had something very similar at Groundswell a couple of years ago, where what's down below in the soil is dictated. He was talking about super weeds and how the reason why you're getting fat hen or whatever is because I've got too much available nitrates in the soil. When you change the bacterial to fungal ratio, then you change what's going to be growing in the soil. So
diversity of plant comes from a much more balanced, diverse soil ecosystem. I won't pretend that I could have even begun to garden that to its diversity. I was never. You can tell those plants are set on some sort of system where I've kind of gone, okay, what's the flow here? I'm going to have a matrix of blah, and then a little colony of blah, and then what do we call them? The pop-up ones.
Emergence.
We
love
a couple of emergent fennels and scabious and carrots, and then I'm going to do that. No, and you can tell I haven't been able to do that, and I haven't done that, and as a result, it reads totally differently to how you could ever plant it, and the great joy is that you don't know it's going to come up.
Yeah.
So it's kind of so it's really quite exciting. Much more exciting than actually
I feel my body
planting a plant and just watching it.
I feel my body as you're talking, and the use of the word emergence, again, other people's language. And then you said, but I don't know what's coming up. I went, my stomach went in a bit you're not control. I don't know. I can't sit there and talk to a client and go, well, that's what's going to happen.
but that is the story that we've got to tell clients, is that yes, it's got to be much less. That's why the doula thing is quite good, because it's got to be much less coming from a point of authority and sort of saying, I can tell you this because I know everything. And it's much more, in fact, it's moving from that masculine to that feminine again, right? Yeah. That whole kind of like, we love our politicians to tell us exactly what is going to happen. And that's why we elect the dumbass politicians again and again and again and again and again. Yeah. But if we just were accepting of people who said, I don't know what's going to happen, I just have a lot of past experience that tells me that when things happen, I'm going to know what to do, and I'm going to be able to guide you through how we manage and how we cope.
Because we're playing this game, aren't we? We're all making it up as we go along.
They are the people you actually want on board, don't you?
Yes.
During an ecological and environmental crisis.
Yeah.
Because it's the narrative of control and the narrative of knowing everything. It's beginning to be exposed as complete hogwash. And you know, this idea that then AI is going to save us, or some little robot's going to save us, or some sort of green technology is going to save us, that's being exposed as complete hogwash as well. Working with what's in existence is the only way. It's literally the only way. It's always been the only way. There's nothing changed about that. I am fascinated to, I think one of the things that's becoming more and more fascinating for me is kind of like, how do you work with soils and start to understand. I understand quite a lot more about plant succession, but soil succession is still that experiment that needs to be experimented again and again and again. It's so idiosyncratic to place. You know, I think you were talking yesterday about how I see this as a reasonably early succession grassland, this bit here, but the rest of my garden is an open mosaic garden. And so, you know, trying to move a very low nutrient soil naturally into a later stage woodland is a constant head puzzle and a constantly has me engaged intellectually.
You've looked I mean, so just on above camera. So what I found most fascinating yesterday was so the hazel coppice, and then working with whips and acorns.
Yeah.
And then using the ramial woodchip.
Yeah.
And so you're changing the soil biology, or you're moving the soil biology, and therefore it can support
a more woody structure.
Yeah.
That was the idea. Through listening to lots of agroecology success stories with ramial woodchip, and seeing how the soil moves quite quickly from bacterially dominated soil to fungally dominated soil, and really encourage mycorrhizal relationships.
So ramial wood chips is wood chips from wood
7 centimeters diameter.
Yeah.
And the idea is that the 7 centimeter diameter clipping has an even bark to inner carbon ratio.
Yeah.
And in the bark you have lots of different nutrients and lots of different types of, correct me if I'm wrong, lignin, I think.
Yep.
That you don't get in the inner carbon wood.
Yes.
And it's that in particular that causes this flush of mycorrhizal life, they think.
Yeah.
This flush of mycorrhizal life and this flush of bacterial life that doesn't then deplete the soil of nitrogen whilst it processes the carbon, but actually just increases carbon exponentially very quickly.
Yes.
And it also has other side effects where it seems to quite quickly change the structure of the soil and the texture.
And you picked that soil up yesterday,
yeah? So it goes from clay to a woodland soil very quickly, a very friable loam, very, very quickly, very dark, very carbon rich. It keeps in water. It promotes worm life. It changes things quite dynamically, and it's a huge soil conditioner, if you would like it. But what you're doing is you're almost biomimicking your woodland soil, but like fast tracking it. So instead of leaving large pieces of wood to rot down over time, you're chipping them up and making them rot much more and decompose more quickly. And so all those decaying, those detritivores come in really, really quickly, including I had a massive spike, not just in worms, but beetles down there.
Yes.
Massive spike in beetles, which was really interesting. So it completely changed the biology down there. And so the really weird thing was I'd put in those tiny weeny little, I'd got hazel from local coppices. So I wanted to make sure I had locally sourced. I try and make sure I have as much locally sourced tree in particular, well, seed, anything in the garden. It's all locally sourced. It comes from a local destination, as wild as possible, as open pollinated as possible. So it's already adapted to site. That's the idea, and it's locally bioregional, and it's keeping that bioregionality going. It's not come from some Dutch nursery that's produced the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. It might come in with various different bugs on it as well, pathogen. So put those in, and they weren't doing too well in this very dense clay that's on site. It was anaerobic. There was no worms down there. It smelt, and the meadow also was struggling down there. And I put it in initially in small chunks, and then, I mean, just the change was so quick that I carried on putting it on and on and on, and it's moved the woodland very quickly. Did that not catch up?
No, that's all good. Yeah, don't worry about it.
And it's been interesting experimenting with that, because I think we're very interested at the moment in horticulture with early succession soils.
Yeah.
That's the sand garden obsession, the rubble garden obsession. Early succession is great for insects and invertebrates in terms of pollinating ones and things like...
So that again, so we're obsessed with early successional landscapes.
Yeah, I think we are at the moment, because they suit this kind of urban instance. They're still quite instant. You can get instant success with
Rude rules and
with seed. You'll get, I mean, it's 12 months maybe, or 6 months, but you'll get something. And they're not very, but I mean, interestingly, Peter Corm has started to throw the seed around, but also throw in oaks and throw in woodies and throw in shrubs, and then garden them back to a back scale.
I remember you saying, actually. So
so you've got the early succession. Maybe it's not always a grassland, because actually Peter doesn't use that many native grasses. Neither does John. But you know, I would use a lot of them. I think that they're vitally important. But you know, each to their own. But what the idea with an open mosaic landscape, which these guys are I think we're accepting that that's a model for a garden in many ways, because it's so variable and diverse that it can provide a large amount of wildlife value in quite a small space. So that fits a garden model. But the thing that I see over and over again is the early succession landscape part of it, maybe a bit of water, but we don't see the later succession, the scrub and the woodland edge and the deeper woodland, maybe the kind of outgrown hedgerow bit of it.
I just think, I just think sort of like practically, why don't we include literally within the bucket of seed, that you are including an acorn, a haw, like you are putting that, you are seeding, you are spreading the fruit of woody perennials. So if we're going to do a semi-pastiche of a landscape, then at least can we not factor that in?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. I went to Sarah Price's garden, beautiful garden, last year, and she had this meadow in the garden, beautiful meadow, but it's surrounded by woodland. And oaks have started to self-seed themselves in the meadow, and things started to self-seed themselves in my back meadow as well. And there's that thing of, do you let them in, or do you weed them out, or do you move them somewhere else? And she's let them grow and topiarized them. And she's allowing that meadow to move into something different.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating. And it feels deeply new and deeply
stylized squirrel.
Yeah. I mean, and it's actually brought in more birds. It's brought in more different things.
Yeah.
And it's again another landscape. But this idea of gardening with what naturally occurs.
Yeah.
Is surely the next step.
Yep.
So, you might begin with a seed bank, but I think Donald McIntyre's idea now of there is a local seed bank, Donald McIntyre owns seed. There is also a local seed bank that one needs to respect. It's locally indigenous to place, and part of working with the local and indigenous
spontaneous
vegetation is allowing expression on the site, and that helps to understand. That helps you to better understand the site. So he sort of says, don't cover it with seed from his meadow company.
It's good. I'll get on him.
His own seed company. Don't cover it with seed. If you really want something that's truly idiosyncratic and truly reflective of local ecology, then put on a general purpose mixture and then let what's in the seed bank erupt and tell you more about that place, so that you garden that place. You're in that place's community. Now, of course, we might not quite be there in terms of being able to accept that.
So on that, this is why, and Dave realised this as well, this the meanwhile garden, the spontaneous, again, on that journey, where the spontaneous vegetation with the verbascum, the nepeta, the whatever from Beth Chatto's, because they've kindly donated plants. I think that's the first part of that journey, where you spontaneous vegetation with some notable garden plants, so people begin to understand. Now, that's a bit halfway house, but I think that's a good starting point. So spontaneous vegetation comes up, and then it's given context by the large leaf verbascum you've got at the top of your drive.
It's difficult, isn't it?
That was quite a lukewarm reaction.
Well, I know, because I do find this whole, I think there is a debate to be had, and people do not have it, about how much you mix native flora with non-native flora.
We're not having it, generally. Is that what you're saying? You're not having that discussion?
We're not having the discussion, no, because I think...
We're having a discussion. We're having... Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, well, you're either on the native side or the non-native side. I mean, what a load of bollocks that is. It's so annoying. We clearly need to have native plants.
Yes.
We clearly need to start valuing native plants. And yet we have all this, I mean, I would say an absolute barrage from some in our industry of PR about how non-natives are just as good as natives, if not better. I mean, it's a barrage of PR about it all.
Yeah.
Absolutely, you can't move for the PR about it all. And it's bollocks. Yes, it is bollocks. Ecologically and botanically, it has been proven over and over and over and over and over and over again. Not only are they food, larval sources, and all the rest of it, so we understand the ecologically that these guys are feeding the larval food sources. They have wild relationships with the soil.
Yeah.
They are the basis of all life on Earth. That plants can't evolve unless these guys are growing. These guys hold biodiversity in their petals, in the seed, in their root system. A cultivated plant doesn't hold it.
No.
It's been removed from that system.
Yes.
So we need to work, if we're working wild, we're working with the wild relationship between plant and place.
So is that willful? I mean, is that, are people just ignorant, or are they lying, or genders?
I mean, sometimes I find it really, really complicated, and I sort of, I don't understand, and I've sort of got to the point where I just think, why do I need to understand them? That's their bag, you know. Maybe they're all in the past and they're all about to jog on anyway and retire. Let's hope. But you know, definitely botany. When we look at botany now, botany has come a long way, but it understands that the plant, you know, a plant doesn't, the genetics of the plant doesn't all exist within the structure of the plant.
Yes.
In actual fact, the genetic adaptability of the plant and its evolutionary potential lives quite a lot within the rhizosphere and within the seed of that plant, which is then influenced by the bacteria that are going in and out of the plant, that are plant part soil, and then all the mycorrhizae that are similarly like that. So this seed, instead of being a seed from a seed packet that's kind of sterile and lifeless, just a seed, this seed is actually a living being that has a whole possibility of being something different from its parent, and a whole possibility of something new. And that means that this plant is living biodiversity, whereas a Nepeta bought from a very nice nursery isn't. And so there's a vast difference between the two. And so, you know, many botanists who are very pure puritanical about it would argue that it's actually really confusing for the public to have non-natives with natives, or have things like pictorial meadows where you've got this smorgasbord of non-natives but in a meadow-like planting, because it confuses people culturally about recognizing what is weed and what is native wild flower, and what is important and what is not important. And then there would be others who sort of say, well, it's a journey of adapting people to this and adapting behaviors to it. And honestly, I don't know where I stand on it. I know that increasingly I've put non-natives in the more domestic part of my meadow, and then deliberately down here only use natives. And when I put non-natives in initially, I thought, oh God, that takes a great photo. Oh God, that is great in the photos. And I've put it all over my website, and it doesn't look good on social media. And then when I'm actually in it, it just doesn't feel the same.
No.
So, and I don't know whether that's Yeah, I've got no idea. Is it conditioning? Is it just, that's what it was supposed to do? It done what it was supposed to do. Move the aesthetic dial. It moved the dial of what I was, where I'm willing to sit on the authorship place. But I don't know what it is. I don't know. But it's the problem I have with our society and our language and our discussions in horticulture is that because if you're talking about native and non-native and indigenous and colonial and imperial paths, where we've taken a lot of these plants and we've chucked them around in foreign places, places that weren't ours, but we took as ours, and then they have then dominated, and they are then weeds in those places. They are weeds. They are invasive weeds, but they are not invasive weeds here. And we seem to be able to not find the language to be able to talk openly about this and talk about how we get the general public that's very divorced from this to understand it. It's an important conversation. We all just shy away from it, I think.
Shy away, but continue education. I do think I do put my professional hat on and, going to robot mode now, I think, changing specifications. So we're not changing specifications, not just ticking the box of you go to Ramsgate Seeds or you go to, where is the provenance? And you slowly change it that way. So wish I could be more romantic and artistic, changing specifications.
No,
and then rehash in the same way people are rehashing Landscape 20, Melcock compost, you get into a process where it has its problems as well, but you're rehashing a better, more ecologically minded specification. I know it sounds a bit contradictory, but I'm.
Yeah, I think also, I also think that you can't just do it as a designer. You need to get more involved. We need as designers to get more involved with the everyday gardening of it all. And say part of the gardening of a place like this, and I'm really, really passionate about this, part of the gardening it is collecting seed from around the site, collecting seed and resowing it, and resowing it, and resowing. And if you don't have bioregional seed available, you make your bioregional seed.
Yeah.
And that's part of gardening. Well, that's part of good gardening is collecting seed, sharing it. Sharing is really important.
Yeah.
Collecting seed and sharing it, crossing seed with other people, and doing it over and over and over and over again, and reintroducing wild ways of working with seed again and again and again and again.
But this gets on. I think it can get on to the wider discussion on where the money goes, like the pot of money with a commercial client house or whatever, it needs to be just distributed differently.
Yes.
And getting away from self-interest, less money for people like me, and more available money for the gardener.
Yeah. For the evolving garden.
Yeah. And then our business model changes from, again, thinking practically, from an ongoing monthly consultation fee than a big wedge, you know.
Yeah.
Better use of money.
Yes.
Of course it is.
Yes. Infinitely better.
Just like all the money that's spent on concept plans and outsourcing renders and what the fuck? Playing with my nails because I'm a bit awkward about it. Yeah, but no, seriously.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. It's not
And
not helping anything, is it?
It's not. And it's a conversation. And so I did the podcast with John, Benny, Dave, and a really good guy from Glendale Grounds Maintenance on the last podcast. And we were talking about cutie care and maintenance. And we still haven't got to the bottom of why funding doesn't go towards gardening. I want, if somebody's listening to this, like, I want to understand why we just can't get some money rather than it being capital expense. It's just used different and is put in a different kind of bank account and pays for ongoing maintenance.
But isn't that also the same thing throughout our whole society? I mean, I take it society-wide. I mean, you get Boris Johnson releasing all this money to build new hospitals.
Okay, all right. So on that point,
but we don't have enough to.
Oh, but on that point, so literally, vanity. So because it's vanity.
It's vanity, but it's also, again, I would go back to the fact that in Western culture, in particular, we are so hooked on needing to see a product.
All right, and then PR. So I keep thinking. Sorry, I'm kind of listening. I'm saying this out now because I want to make sense of it. So, we build the lovely garden for the hospice, and everybody's patting themselves on the back. Okay, so that's PR. It's on the social media, but then surely there's better ongoing PR where that garden looks good year 1, year 2, and it's rolling, and the stories. If we're going to be playing this bullshit PR game, well, let's play it better, where the gardener is keeping it looking good and it's changing lives and blah blah blah. Over a number of years.
I mean, it's interesting because it doesn't work like that. You're right. I mean, Gardens Illustrated, I think the average age of the garden there is 3 years old. And
Can we stop taking photographs of gardens at 4 o'clock in the morning, please, on a summer day? Just stop it, please. Just like, can you take a picture of it at 12 noon where it's,
I'd love to see a couple of pictures of the gardener actually working in it.
Yeah. And the
sweat.
Sweat and the bare.
And the mud.
Yeah.
And the
impracticality of the design.
Maybe, but they almost expunge human existence out of them.
Yeah. So you're right. It's this kind of otherworldly expunging. There are people in there.
Well, I think that this goes back to this thing about, for me, also continually trying to have a discussion about, I really want to have a discussion about not just about native and non-native, but also what is wild. What is a wild garden?
Yeah.
Because our notions of wild garden are still dictated, I think, in horticulture, just like our notions of meadow is dictated by either hay meadow, or pretty much hay meadow, whereas actually a grassland meadow is loads of different things. Our notions of native and non-native are all confused with weeds and colonialism and all of these sort of things, which we need to get beyond in order to see the ecology of it all.
So I think about this. What would you?
And then the notion of wild.
So
it's dominated by William Robinson, I think. And the wild garden, and that's a Victorian romantic idea of wilderness as other to us, where we kind of like put it on nature on a pedestal, and we admire it from afar, which is Timothy Norton says, the great environmental philosopher. They say, putting nature on a pedestal and admiring it afar is an act of, patriarchy. It's a bit like men putting the nude woman on a picture and admiring it from afar. It's, it's objectifying the thing that we want to get into relationship with. So, let's stop objectifying nature. Let's stop saying, I want somebody to feel awe-inspired when they go in. I want somebody to feel loads of awe and loads of kind of like sacredness or whatever it is. We want people to feel at home. We want people to feel belonging. We want to feel people to feel that this is the right relationship. We want people to feel free to play about in it, gamble around, be themselves. We want people to think, I want this outside my local co-op just as much as I want it inside a really nice garden. It's not a product. It's not a nice to have. It's an essential of life. So, like, yeah, what is wild? I'd like people to stop seeing wild as some sort of wilderness that you escape to and is some sort of beautiful forest system that lives in the indigenous lands of the Amazon.
Yeah.
And start seeing wild as the dandelion growing in the crack outside their back door.
Yes.
And valuing that. And that's one of the reasons why I want to have this debate about native and non-native, because you want people to go out of a garden like this and see all the cow parsley and the ragwort and stuff like that, and then notice it when it's growing on the side of the railway line and think, yes, more. Let's stop nailing that to death. Let's stop glyphosating it. Yes, more. Yes, I don't mind if I have to walk around the brambles in the local park because they're all flowering and they're covered in butterflies. I don't mind, I know that you want people to notice their value, the value of wild. And that means the everyday wild. What
was the book? The Rambunctious Garden.
Yes. Rambunctious Garden is very, very good.
That really informed Thomas Rain as well.
Oh, did it? Yeah. That's interesting.
When did that be? Anyway,
she's great, Emma Maris. I mean, I think that we need to have these discussions about, because we use lots of terms, but everybody uses them and sort of
lazily.
Yeah, and appropriates from other cultures or other. I mean, the word the biodiversity gets flung around like blooming Christmas baubles by designers.
Oh.
Sustainability and biodiversity. I mean, they'll just lob that in like a little
shitty hand grenade.
Yeah, and
stuff people using shut up using. I'm sustainable. What are you talking about?
What does that even mean?
It's actually showing you to be a bit of a just late and it's just lazy. It's lazy. It's just lazy.
Yeah,
and ignorance as well.
Yeah, I mean
the biodiversity.
So that's one of the reasons why we sort of need. That's one of the reasons why with clients it's almost better not to use language, but better to kind of talk about relationships and experiences and emotions and things like that, because the language has been appropriated so much. Like that word meadow has been appropriated to mean so many different things. Apparently Pete Aldor's planting at Bruton in the meadow. I mean, what?
What?
Yeah, it's not a meadow.
Who's using that? Him or the?
I don't know. I just heard it described as a meadow, and who knows? But we appropriate all these ecological terms, and it's no wonder botanists and ecologists get upset with us because we appropriate all these terms and just use them as an aesthetic, and then they're not. And if we're serious about having wilder relationships, if we're serious about ecological regeneration, then we need to get serious with, the language a bit more. And I wonder whether, you almost need different language altogether. The trouble is, at the moment, we've got the language that we've got. And so because we're kind of uncomfortable using the language, we then just don't have the discussions, the debate. And we don't get progressive thought and we don't get movement forward. We only get it on the edges.
But you said yesterday, said numerous times today, don't use the language, just get into people's hearts. Bypass all that.
Yeah.
You say one word, that gives it bollocks. Just bypass that, get to their heart. and have a heart-to-heart conversation literally around the dinner table. And the whole idea of biodiversity, sustainability, low maintenance, blah, all that crap. It's just a better way to interact anyway, regardless of whether it's work or non-work interactions.
Yeah, I agree. I think that you've got to let it go. Let the notion that we're experts. What are we expert in? Like the notion that that there's some sort of hierarchy of structure, anything, and just sort of say the most important thing here is the doing and the experience of doing, and translating that experience to somebody else, and passing on that experiential knowledge to others.
What did you say earlier about I can't bastardizing it? I can't predict exactly what's going to happen, but when it happens, I'll know what to do.
Yeah.
And in a similar vein, James Besson, a few years ago, was doing during COVID time, he was doing a webinar, and in a phrase where, the similar phrase, he said, well, we fail fast and we fail forward. This constant learning, this constant doing, and just doing, reflecting, not doing, and just sort of procrastinating. I love that sort of forward projection.
Yeah. Yeah, and that means...
But we're not experts, and it's bollocks to think we're experts.
Yeah. And divorcing ourselves from that thing of being an expert, because you need to divorce yourself from the idea that regarding some sort of product that you're delivering to a client. You're not delivering a product. And if your client thinks you're delivering a product, then we're in a really, really difficult triangle there. Really difficult triangle. And that you're never going to come out smelling roses.
No.
On that triangle. And the next thing is that because products need to be perfect, don't they?
Yeah.
All the time. And they need to be models of perfection, and they need to be models of constant perfection, of a constantness. They're not allowed to be mutable. They're not allowed to be changeable. They're not allowed to have moods and changeability, and they're not allowed to move from one thing to another. And life is not perfect. Gardens are not perfect, and that is their beauty. That they're not perfect. That's why they are more art than artists would like them to think them to be, because
do you ever think
they kind of
chaos? I think there's, I veer towards sort of, we are exactly where we need to be in life, and I just think kind of spiritual level. And then some days I'm like, life's a bit chaos, we're trying to make meaning of it, and there's no meaning to it, just chaos, and we're just creating a story just to hold back the reality. It's just unrelatable chaos. I don't know.
Maybe they're more like Olivia Lang's book describes, which is that they're kind of like different people's versions of utopia.
Yeah.
And some people's version of utopia is a deceit, where you control nature and you feed that control of nature, as she points out in her book, you feed that control of nature through money that's been laundered through slave trade and the various different things. Or you feed that version of utopia, she says, it says in Jarman's garden and in other gardens, through this kind of like, much more holistic exploration of you as nature and nature as you, and relationship, and you choose the relationship.
Well, that became very different in my body.
Yeah. You choose the relationship. So it's an active choice. to choose to be wilder and to embrace a different way of working. It's an active choice. It's not just a given. That's where the moment of control comes, because you're actively choosing to not be. Surrounded to that. That's lovely. There's something very refreshing about that. I do.
No. But it's surrendering. Surrender's fucking difficult.
Yeah.
I'm not a parent yet. Like there's a surrender of your you're no longer in control of your kids, and your kids are sort of their own people now. You can't. You've done your bit.
Well, yeah, you can't control what they think or what they do or, how they are. Yeah. You also can't control the world that they're going to meet, which is, all you can do is sort of be an example of how you would like to meet the world to them. So yeah, it's less about controlling them, really. I think being a parent myself is less about controlling the child as so much as I'd love to be able to control the world my child has to meet every day. And quite frankly, the school system, our world, that they have to negotiate that. I'd love to change that, but I can't. And so, setting the example by meeting it in the ways that I think might be helpful for them to meet it, but not expecting them to meet it in the same ways. It's really hard. But I think the only thing I'd say is, if climate change has a positive to it, it's that it makes it fundamentally clear that you can't control it. And there will be a worldwide acceptance. So it won't necessarily be something you have to keep on.
Yeah.
And that will be free. I hope.
It's a good way to end it, Joe.
Yeah.
Nice one.